All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks again so much for joining us today for another edition of Empower Hour. Really excited that you could come and be here today. I'm sure as many of you know, today is Giving Day at Ohio, and so wonderful day. Special thanks to all of you that have went to the website and given or maybe shared out information about that. We really do appreciate it. If you haven't checked anything out about that, be sure that you go to give.ohio.edu, and that will direct you to the information that's going on with all the extra ways that you can give and just maximize your support to Ohio today during Giving Day. Two specific funds that I wanted to point out as they're kind of represented here today with our topic. The Thomas Lonsberry Memorial Scholarship in the McClure School, which goes to help student scholarships for those in the McClure ITS program. And so be sure to check that out. I'll have some more information about that and provide a link on that here at the end, as well as the Esports Support Fund, which goes to help support student workers and just advance the esports program, provide some awesome opportunities to students to help them continue to grow. And so thank you all so much for considering those programs. Make sure you check those out. We'll provide some links for you on those at the end. And so I just want to remind you all, this event's being brought to you by the Ohio University Alumni Association, where our goal is to move forward the mission of Ohio University by engaging you, our alumni and our supporters. And we just do that so we can continue to provide awesome opportunities to current and future Bobcats. And so again, we're really excited that you're here. My name is Caleb Biesecker, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Experiences. I'm going to be your host for the day. Just a few housekeeping items before we dive in. Your microphones and cameras are turned off. And so the best way for you to communicate is in the chat. And we really do want you to be involved there, sharing your information and ideas. And whenever you're best engaged in the chat is really when we get great discussion with our panelists as well. And it's a lot of fun. So make sure that you're involved there, as well as maybe answer any poll questions that they put out there. There also is a Q&A function at the bottom. We do ask that for specific questions, you put those in the Q&A function so our panelists can better see those, pull those out and answer your questions. So make sure that you put those there. This presentation is being recorded, so it'll be available at a later time and date. So after you're done and you enjoy the program, like I know you will, you can share it with your friends and direct people to learn more about esports at Ohio. I know there's going to be a lot of interest, so make sure you do that. And I also want to direct you to the Bobcat store. We've got a 20% off code for you. It's Empower0421. We'll put that in the chat. You can go to the Bobcat store, get some new Bobcat swag, 20% off, special deal for being here today. And so again, we're really excited that you're here today, celebrating this Ohio Giving Day with us. And I'm really excited to hear from our presenters today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to them. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Hi, guys. So I'll go ahead and start introducing myself first, and then I can allow my other panelists to introduce themselves as well before we dive in. So I'm Ivy O'Shaughnessy. I am the case resident for Ohio University. So what that means is I help the school figure out ways in which they can build a really great esports initiative and program for students when we do eventually launch this. I'll get more into specifics about the program a little later down the line. But if Hans and Julia, you want to introduce yourselves?
I'll go first. I'm Julio Arauz. I'm the director of the McClure School of Emerging Communication Technologies. We are part of the Scripps College of Communications, and we're involved in the academic side of esports.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hans Kruse, Professor Emeritus of Emerging Communication Technologies, which means I'm retired, but not really, or at least not fully. So I continue to teach part-time in the McClure School. I was director of the McClure School until July of last year when I retired and Julio took over. And I continue to help the school with the esports activities. So had a long interest in that and will continue to work on that.
Awesome. So just to start off, I want to get kind of an idea of how much everybody knows so far. So I think we have a poll ready for that, Caleb, if you want to pull up our esports poll. So this is just a general question out of curiosity. How much have you guys heard about esports before, whether you've been actively involved in it or no, absolutely nothing, or a little bit in between? See, looks like we're waiting for two more. So it's looking like right now, we have 2 people that know nothing, which is totally fine. We'll teach you guys right now. One person has moderate to high amount of experience. That's cool. And then a couple of you also have some experience. So that's really cool to know. That kind of helps me figure out like how much I might need to explain certain things. So I will share my screen here and dive right in. So just to kind of start off, what is esports? If my thing, oh, there we go, is slow. Okay. So esports is a term used to describe competitive video gaming. Now that's a pretty broad term. Competitive video gaming can be used to describe a numerous amount of activities, but typically within esports, what you're going to see is team-based activities or one-on-one activities within games based in a competitive fashion. So similar to chess, these are typically going to be games that take a lot of skill and time to perfect, to get really good at. These are spectator sports. A lot of these events have a huge following amongst different games. Um, and esports have a variety of jobs surrounding them too. So it's not just players. You're typically going to find casters like you would for regular sporting events. You'll find fans that are just crazy about this, that follow every game they watch. And you'll find other different professions that you'd find within sports as well. So that's why this is going to be really good for students as well, because esports really kind of encompasses an industry that you can go into if you have no experience whatsoever. Um, so a couple different esport games. These are just a couple different titles. Esports typically revolve around, first person shooters. We have MOBAs, which is what League of Legends is, which is a 5v5 team game that the best way I can describe it is like online chess, but in a fantasy setting. So MOBAs typically involve teams of 5 having different characters that do a variety of different things, trying to fight over a objective. I wish I could show you some video, but unfortunately these videos are usually too long to do within the time we have. So just out of curiosity, could you guys list what games you know so far in chat? Let me see, is there a way for me to see chat without, oh, here we go. Overwatch, Dota 2, Fortnite, World Rally Championship. Dota's a big one. And so we'll get a little bit more into Dota 2. That's one of the largest earning games you can play so far too. So just a little history about esports too. Something I hear a lot is that esports is this new age concept that's only been around for a couple of years. Esports has been around since the 1970s. They used to have competitions for Space Invaders. There's a game called Space War, which people consider like the very first esports tournament. It hasn't only been around for these past couple of years. In fact, it's just ramped up. But esports has slowly been building its community and its industry all throughout the 1970s up until modern day. So typically you used to see esports as these competitions that were in ballrooms with a bunch of computers and people playing side by side. That's still the case sometimes, but nowadays a lot of esports are typically online, especially with COVID. So you'll see a lot of these large broadcasted events broadcasted over Twitch, which is a very common streaming service, or YouTube, which is another large one. And these will typically be in the same fashion you would see with football games. Well, there'll be a set of casters talking about it. You'll see the competition on screen, and then you have the ability to interact with the competition too. So a lot of these will often give players and individuals watching it a chance to interact with it in game, which is kind of the cool thing about esports is the interactivity is not set just to the individuals playing, it's also set to the users as well. So if you are a fan of Overwatch, for example, you can go into the game and rewatch the games in live time. So instead of having a set screen that you would watch with the caster, you'd be able to go into the game and move around the map and see the point of view that the players are watching. So it's really innovative. It's something I kind of hope we can move to modern sports one day. I'd say technologically, it's really kind of moving even modern sports forward. So just some esports by the numbers. Whoops, where is my, there we go. So esports right now is valued at $1.8 billion, which tells you kind of why we need to invest in it. A couple of you have talked about Dota. Dota is currently the largest earner in esports. So in 2020, the prize pool for the grand finals for a Dota game was $40 million, which is quite a lot of cash. And then the highest earning esports player is also actually a Dota player called No Tail, and he has earned over $6.97 million. So that's a good chunk of change. That's typically what you'd see with, football players do or anything like that. So that's just kind of a base view of esports. I'll get more into Bobcat Esports too and kind of how that interacts with Ohio University. But I think Cooley is going to go more on kind of the academic side of things. I think you're muted, Julio.
There you go. Thank you, Ivy. I'll share my screen. 1 second. Okay, so you should be able to see this. There you go. I have to go to the beginning. Oops. There you go. Okay, 1 second. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the McClure School of Emerging Communication Technologies and focus on the academic side of esports. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of who we are, what we do, and what we do within esports at Ohio University. So this is a quick picture of who we are. I'm going to take between 5 and 10 minutes. I wanted to show you some of the faces of the people that are in our program. So we are a program that mixes, or a school that mixes creativity and technology. So we have labs that deal with data networking. We have a lab that deals with virtual reality, game development, and augmented reality. We also participate in multiple research endeavors with external partners and inside Ohio University. For instance, we participate in the data collection and Internet of Things initiative for the Green Roof, which is located in the third floor of the Scripps College. We also have several projects that our students participate in. We have lots of funding that's coming from external sources, especially through the Grid Lab. So here's the structure of the McClure School. So again, we have an ITES program, which focuses in the business of information technology, information networking. We're also part of a games and animation program that is in cooperation with the Media Arts and Studies School. And here on the right, I'm going to leave esports for the end. And we also have a graduate program in information and telecommunication systems, where there we also deal with the business of, or how to solve business problems with information networking technology. And we have also a 4+1 program that allows our students to complete a master's degree in just 1 year. Now here, the central part for this presentation is esports. So the school is involved in esports with university from the academic side. So what that means is that along with the College of Business and the Sport Administration department there, we actually offer an esports undergrad certificate. And I'll show you the structure of that certificate in a minute. We also handle the, for the new esports facility, and you'll see some pictures in a minute, we handle the academic IT infrastructure of that facility. So by that, I mean that we're interested in looking at the flow of information, of gaming information through that facility to understand its performance and how to optimize it, and to involve undergraduate and graduate students in understanding how technology impacts the performance of esports. And Dr. Kruse will actually go through a lot of detail on why that is important, or why that is crucial in esports. We also coordinate academic activities with other units at OU. For instance, we work with the School of Journalism and the School of Media. We're going to be broadcasting or streaming the activities from within the facility and the competitions. So we have the knowledge to put together a very professional stream, because we have journalism people that know about media and video and broadcasting. We also have WOUB involved as well. A little bit about the esports undergrad certificate. It's a 19 credit hours certificate. It blends knowledge from different disciplines. So you have a core track where you learn about technology, and the sports administration business. And then you pick a track, and you can either select and specialize yourself in sports management, maybe in game design, or also in information technology. After that, you take an esports seminar and a capstone class. So with 19 credit hours, you really have a really good foundation to go out there and start working in the area. It's an undergraduate certificate that lets you pick how you're going to approach esports. On the bottom right of the slide, you'll see there's a rendering of our new esports facility. It's actually finished now. It looks pretty much like that, the actual facility, and we expect that one to have up and running sometime later this year. Let me tell you a little bit more about the other things that we do really quickly at the McClure School. We have a program in information technology or information communication systems. Our goal there is to solve business problems with technology. So our students learn about data networking, data security, and privacy. All of them get a business minor. And we also do other things like Internet of Things, wireless networking, and security, for instance. Our school also has offerings in virtual reality and gaming. And in this area, you can combine. So if you get a degree from ITS, you can specialize in and take what we call an area of concentration. So you can concentrate your studies around the virtual reality of gaming. And that is because we are actually part of a games and animation program that we offer in cooperation with the Media Arts and Studies School. And in this program, students learn not just about the technology behind games and behind animation and virtual reality, but they look and explore the creative side of these areas, and they learn how to tell stories with games and how to create final products that could be used in the animation industry or the gaming industry. Okay, so this is my final slide. So what can you actually do with a degree from our McClure School? So our students, when they graduate, we have professional degrees. So they might join the information technology industry as sales engineers, maybe network engineers. Some of them might work in security or in data privacy. Lots of them go and handle projects for different areas, for information networking, for gaming, for creative companies. Some might work as in units that do virtual reality production or designing games, or in animation units for films or for other uses, for all their industrial uses. Okay, so those were my eight slides. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We can answer them now or later on during our talk. So with that, I'll give this back to Ivy.
I believe it's Hans.
Sorry,
No, you're
Hans.
fine.
That's quite all right. Quite all right. You had a 50-50 chance there.
Yeah, that was.
Well, welcome again, everyone who's joining us now, or indeed later on during the if you're rewatching this, and if you want to drop your screen share,
There you go.
I'll be able to. There we go. So you might have noticed I use a slightly different setup, and that is actually sort of relevant to what we're talking about today. I'm using the same kind of production software that you would use to broadcast esports events or esports game, or if you were just gaming and streaming on Twitch, which I do. So that I just have to adapt that a little bit to. And I think the way to do that is this way. There we go. So my interest in esports really started as a personal interest. My professional career, I retired, as I said, after just under 30 years of service at Ohio University. My professional interest in what Julio talked about is the ITS program. So my specialty is data communications over the internet. I do a lot of work with NASA on data communications to spacecraft. So nothing really related to esports initially, until you start looking at what it takes to really successfully run an esports event, and then it suddenly becomes quite relevant. So what I want to talk a little bit about today are some of the technical aspects. Before I do that, so a little bit of self-promotion. On the screen, you can see my Twitter handle is OUProfCruz, but I also actually do regular broadcasts on the Twitch platform under twitch.tv/ProfCruz without the OU. And actually not gaming, I do technology streams once a week. So that's, this is part of my setup for that. And since Ivy mentioned Dota 2, which is, by the way, the game that I started with because two of my children were playing it. I played it with them very poorly, I might add. But I got kind of interested and realized it was a professional scene that went with that. And so on another monitor up here, I have Twitch open to see what's going on, and there's a Dota match going on in one of the leagues that right now, right this minute, has 80,000 viewers. Just a few more than you guys here with us, but I'm glad you are here and not part of the 80,000 watching Dota 2. So my task today is to talk about a couple of the aspects that make this an interesting environment, academically, technically, lots of challenges, which means lots of opportunities for our students, lots of things that we want to do to teach our students. So just like, I think Ivy had a very similar diagram here. So this would, and of course, in the days of COVID, we haven't really done a ton of in-person events. This is an esports arena. Star Ladder is one of the companies that runs a number of different tournaments for different types of events or different types of games. And as an aside, COVID has actually brought esports even further to the forefront because it's much easier to socially distance and still run esports events than it is obviously with physical sports. But I just want to, so just it's kind of hard to see because these things are always dimly lit. This is a regular, probably a basketball arena, could be a football stadium. Again, the numbers, the numbers of attendees are huge. And to sort of put Ivy's numbers in perspective, in terms of winnings, the prize money, and in terms of viewership, it's a premier esports events, Dota 2, League of Legends, which is very similar, structurally very similar game to Dota 2. Think of them as roughly on level with the highest profile tennis events, Wimbledon, some of the other major in tennis. The numbers sort of match up, at least did over the past couple of years. I suspect that esports will probably grow past that. What you're looking at here, so it's a huge stadium, lots of lighting, but the actual teams are right here. There's one team and there's the opposing team. This is one of the MOBAs, arena. This is an arena game, and so there are 5 players, 5 computers in each of these enclosures, with the 5 team members playing against each other. So there's a couple of interesting questions to so when you design a game, either on purpose or accidentally becomes an esports title, and now you want to support that, what are some of the things you need to do, right? So this, again, this is something Ivy mentioned. This is, again, this is a screenshot from Dota 2. If you looked at League of Legends, it would look almost the same. So here are the characters, right? So if I'm playing this game, this is my character right here. And this character here are opponents. This character here is one of my teammates. So this is what the game would look like when I'm playing it. There's one thing I want to point out, because I'm going to come back to it when I talk about broadcasting these types of events. When you try to figure out how to actually present this to an audience, notice that the game itself has an awful lot of information running around on screen already, right? So there are there's information up here at the top about the actual the teams. There's a sort of an overall overview map here. There's a user interface elements here. There's more information here. So all of a sudden, as a broadcaster and as a game designer, you're starting to say, is there room for the additional information you want to add when you broadcast this as a game? So from a game design perspective, which of course is one of the things that we teach out of the McClure School, there's a couple of things I wanted to point out. One of them is that most games have what I call random number generators. So you hear gamers talking about RNG, which is great. That makes the game less predictable. It makes makes it more fun because you can't you're not entirely sure what's going to happen. There's randomness involved. Obviously, when something like that happens, you have to be careful to balance that against the need to have competitions result in outcomes that are really driven by the skill of the player. So from a game design perspective, it's actually kind of interesting to just figure out, how far can I go with randomizing things before I've created something that is lots of fun to play. But when two teams play against each other, there's a good chance the outcome might be dictated by random events rather than the skill of the players, which you don't want. One thing that most leagues, just as physical sports will do to mitigate that somewhat, is to go to best of 3 or best of 5 series. And obviously baseball does that a great deal because there's a certain amount of randomness obviously involved in those games. And obviously some other sports do that for revenue's sake. But in esports, when you see in esports events running their competitions as best of 3 or best of 5, it is yes, you want to give the audience more to watch, but you also want to avoid having sort of random events dictate the outcome. Spectator mode. This is something that game designers actually have to be very mindful of, and that's what I was alluding to when I had that screenshot kind of up in a larger format. How do I make it possible for spectators to have a good experience? All right, so let me pull this up again. Let me do it this way. There we go. So this is the map, the way I would see it if I'm playing this game. But as Ivy said, I can actually in many game clients, I can jump in either during the match or afterwards and follow along, and I can jump between different players and see the game from their perspective. So that's a good start. One of the things that the MOBA, so League of Legends and League of Legends as well as Dota do is they provide a spectator mode that shows more than the regular player will actually see. So, like just as one example here, so this mini map here. Normally, it will only show me things that I can actually see. So, I can certainly see this enemy character, which means I can see him on the mini map. But others that may be further away, I cannot see. The spectators want to see everything, so they can see the strategy, and they see the teams moving, even though the teams can't actually see each other. So there's some very interesting design considerations that go into that. So some of the chat said randomness is good, but shouldn't decide the outcome. So that's sort of a design goal, and it's a game that wants to be esports ready, which is a term you might hear. It has to take that into account. And then player perspectives are always available. So I'll talk a little bit more about broadcasting in just a moment towards the end of my my segment here. So I have to design game. I have to do things in game in the game client that go well beyond just making the game playable for the participants. And then obviously the area that I have a lot of expertise in is typically, again, referred to when you see, people talking about esports titles and esports events. And in this case, game design, they'll talk about something called netcode. And that has to do with the fact that, of course, a game like this one, even if the players are all in the same arena, and many times, of course, they are not, especially during the pandemic, but also before that, smaller events will take place with either the teams being in their own facility, but the two teams using different facilities, which I'm hearing is probably how the leagues that OU is participating in the fall will probably run that way to avoid travel in sort of at the hopefully be the tail end of the pandemic. But we'll still have that situation where our team will be in our facility, but the team we're playing will be someplace else. And indeed, in some cases, the players that are on the same team may even be spread out over their homes or wherever they're playing from. So these games are designed, let's say, in the case of Dota 2 or League of Legends, you have 10 players in a match. They can all 10 be in completely different parts of the world. If in some cases, sort of different places, they communicate through a game server that's in the center of the network somewhere. So the gaming company will run a game server, and then the individual players, their game clients will all talk to this game server, and the game server will mediate between the clients and pass information back and forth. You have to do that obviously very efficiently, otherwise things don't work right. And we'll get a little bit more detail on that in just a second here. And so doing that properly is actually a skill that is in really high demand, because I lost track of how many really good, I'll say just esports, but really good video game titles have gotten a really bad reputation or had a really poor launch because the netcode wasn't tested properly or implemented properly. And when a lot of people wanted to play it, it just didn't work very well. And it's really unfortunate, because in many cases were really well designed games otherwise, with lots of fun content, but the players got really frustrated because they couldn't be played the way they were supposed to be played. Right. So the reason network infrastructure matters is as I said, the players will be distributed in different places, and so they have to communicate over the network. Now, one misconception is that games are really, huge and they're large to download, which they are. They can be. OU discovered that when I think it was this game here, Call of Duty, when it updated, the download was tens of gigabytes, and everybody in the dorms, this pre-pandemic, downloaded it and basically brought OU's network to its knees. That's when we update or download, install, or update a game. During gameplay, the information that flows is actually not very voluminous. It's a small amount of information, but it has to be traveling very quickly. So this is I think this is a Call of Duty screenshot. So this is a first-person shooter. You can see, my gun here. If I'm the player, you can see. Maybe grab a different color here. So you can see this is my rifle. I'm expecting an opponent to come around the corner. The problem is, if that player is here already and can see me, but I can't see them because the update from the server hasn't reached me yet, I'm at a super big disadvantage. All right, so I have to ensure for a good competition, I have to ensure that the network actually delivers this information quickly and consistently. And that's actually a really big challenge for today's networks. Yep. Yes. Thanks, Ivan. I knew I pulled the screenshot and then I forgot which one I picked. So somebody asked, what are some of the flaws players would see with poor netcode? This is one of them, where an opposing player is actually interacting with you, shooting at you, before you actually has gotten the update and see that that player has come out of cover. That would be that would be one. Another one that can happen is there we go. So another problem that can happen is let's say you actually see the opposing player and they're moving in this direction. So you expect them to move smoothly, so you can say that they're running left to right. So I'm gonna have to aim here somewhere to register a hit. But the update, an update was missed, or or network information networks delivered too slowly. Yes, there's where you're allowed to blame the lag. So if the update was delivered too slowly, so you'll hear players probably, well, that player just teleported, because instead of smoothly moving along this path, suddenly your opponent disappears here and reappears over here. You thought you would get him on the way, but he was never there. He just jumped from one place to the other. So that would be another example of either a combination of netcode or poor network infrastructure. So we're actually spending, and this is one of the things that I'm spending some of my time on. We're actually working with Ohio University's IT organization to make sure that at least on campus we provide the best network experience we can. And then let me wrap up my segment here, talking a little bit about broadcasting. So in some ways, broadcasting for esports looks very similar to a physical sports event. So the top right there, you can see it. There's a panel of experts. There are play-by-play announcers. The difference is and I don't have the exact numbers, but for the Super Bowl, assume that whatever broadcast networks covering the Super Bowl will be running for the game coverage itself something on the order of magnitude 15 different cameras. If you have we just talked about these MOBAs. If you have these MOBAs, you have 10 players, so you have 10 screens showing that player's perspective of the game. You have 10 more cameras that show you a shot of the player itself, so you can get the, for those of you who have been around long enough to watch the old ABC World of Sports broadcast, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, we have that here too. And so you have little cameras are aimed at the players, so you can see them going, oh, why did I do that? Or yes, I did it, right? So so that's another 10 cameras. You have the play-by-play announcers, and then you might have a shot of the arena itself, some audience shots. I mean, you're up in the mid-20s, maybe 30 different video inputs really, really quickly. So this is a very challenging environment for broadcasting. Obviously, I already mentioned that depending on the game design, your graphics overlay designers and the statistics folks have to be very innovative to figure out where on screen do I put the information for the additional information for the viewers without obscuring parts of the game that the viewers want to see, because there's so many elements in the game screen itself that are important to me to watch. And then finally, and I brought up a card game here as my other visual, simply because once you do all these things, you have all the you have a game client and a spectator mode. You have lots of statistics overlays. All of a sudden, you're presenting information that actually would present an advantage to one or the other team, because you can see things that it would not normally see in their game. So now you have to broadcast on a delay. The one example that I could think of in real world or physical sports, where for a while poker tournaments were pretty popular, And at least one of those tournaments required the players to show their cards to a small camera that was attached to the poker table. And so the viewers could see what all the hands were. But obviously, you can't broadcast that in real time. And so we have the same problem here. We have to broadcast on a delay, which can get a little challenging as well. So, I'm just so really what I wanted to do here is give everyone a flavor of just sort of what some of the challenges are in this environment, and therefore what opportunities are for our students, and what we and the various bits of curriculum, starting with that esports certificate, what the various opportunities are that we can present our students to learn some of these skills and then become good at running these esports events. And for obvious reasons, we collaborated with sports administration for that first certificate, because there's so many similarities and overlaps in terms of running the event. And then we have obviously the game design and the technology, the broadcasting expertise as well. So I think we had a couple of comments and questions already during while I was talking. So I think I'm going to hand this over to Ivy to talk about our esports teams. And then hopefully, there'll be some questions that we can all collectively address at the end. So thank you.
Perfect. Hey guys. So I'm gonna try and not rush through this, but I want to make sure we have enough time for questions at the end if there are any. Let me make sure I can pull up my chat here. Chat, there we go. I'm not a Zoom native, so you guys can probably tell. So I just want to talk a little bit quickly about kind of how the Esports Club came to fruition, a little history around that. So just kind of to start off, the Esports Club was started by me, Christopher Myers, and Adam Maslowski about during my sophomore year, which I believe was Chris's junior year, and Adam is a graduate student. So this program has been kind of several years in the making now for a while. What originally started as an idea to unify the style of game communities on campus turned into something so much bigger. So Chris, Adam, and I had originally met because we wanted to find a way to make sure that all of the game communities on campus could come together as one and meet and talk with each other. Because at the time, there were a couple different esports clubs on campus, but they were doing their own thing. They didn't really talk with any other games. It was kind of like, I'd almost call them like siloed clans that kind of like saw each other from afar, but didn't really interact. So our whole purpose was to try and make sure everybody could come together and share their games with each other, learn more about the esports industry, and create different opportunities for students who maybe didn't want to necessarily stick to one game. And this was originally supposed to be a purely recreational thing / maybe a little bit into the professional realm. We had no idea it would become the huge thing it did. So, as the screen says, we went from 6 members to now over 700 as of our Discord. And for those of you unfamiliar, Discord is basically like Slack for people who are into esports and gaming primarily. And, the passion of the students is kind of really what pushed this to become recognized by the school. A lot of us talked with different faculty and staff on ways in which we could legitimize this program, in different ways in which we could turn the program into something that now provides internship opportunities for students, job opportunities once they graduate, and real-time, real-world opportunities and skill sets. So once they go out and graduate, they can, they have some experience under their belt. They know what they're doing. We're not just going to throw them out into the industry, with nothing to go off of. So it's kind of blown up over the past couple of years. It's almost hard to imagine what it's become. So, we had originally, once we talked to different faculty and staff, we had then gone and presented this to the Board of Trustees and talked about why esports programs are so important for universities and schools, which I'll get a little bit into here in a second as well. And yeah, as you see here, this is our jersey, which if people are interested, I can link if you would like to buy your own Bobcat Esports jersey. It's made by Esports Gear. We are very fond of our jerseys. We think they represent us well. So this next, let's see, I can click it, there we go. So these are a couple pictures of the facility. There's nothing in here quite yet. We're still working on getting some of our equipment in there, but like Julio said, we hope to have the equipment in this facility fully running sometime next academic year, hopefully, even fall, potentially, if we can get to that point. So, as you can see kind of the similarities based on the pictures that you've seen before. This up top picture that you're looking at is going to be the competition area. So we're going to have a U-shaped row of, I believe, 12 computers. And this is going to be where our varsity teams practice. This room is specifically for them. So we're not really going to allow any other, clubs or students to participate in here. This is going to be specifically for the varsity program. And this is just a place so they have a quiet, a quiet, useful room, I guess, where they can practice and like work together in peace without worrying about being interrupted or anything like that. Esports are just as competitive as our other sports. So we need to give as many resources as we can to these students to perform at the highest level. And then this is just the door outside. We have this kind of, what I'd say like rectangular wall at the front. And if you go around, what our plan to do is have a caster booth right there. So we'd like to eventually start broadcasting games from the facility too, and competitions and different things like that. Not pictured, we will have a broadcast room too. So students who are interested in learning about broadcasting capabilities or the more technical side of things like hands we're talking about can, go in there and get some hands-on experience. So that's just a little sneak peek of that. And then kind of as I talked about before, what are the benefits of an esport program? So something that I know a lot of kind of parents are worried about is, I don't want to send my student to go to school to play video games. Like what am I paying for? Why would I let them like focus primarily on video games? But that's a misconception that we actively try and avoid. The truth of the reality is the esports industry has job opportunities for individuals not even into esports. We have job opportunities for journalism students, healthcare professionals, like I said, broadcasters, casters, even individuals in traditional sports can go into esports. The amount of jobs that this industry outputs is just unbelievable. And, I personally think that any university that doesn't feel like esports is worth their time is missing out on a large opportunity. So what our varsity program is going to aim to do, and what a lot of other ones do, is provide physical and mental care and health benefits for your students. So, similar to your football teams or your soccer teams, your baseball teams, these students will be required to go under physical regimens to stay in top shape. Something that's pretty commonly known is the fitter you are, like the better you think. And these games are just kind of a large game of, like your mindset, like how well can you perform under stress, like your reaction time, things like that. And the best way to really hone those ends is being at your physical peak. So we will have physical health for students like that. We also have academic resources. Most varsity programs do require students to have a high GPA, which is something OU will also have. So this also allows students to provide opportunities for other students to get help with their academics if they need. Within the esports program, we will have mentorship opportunities, and those don't just go into the game, those go beyond the game academically too. We'll provide any help to students who need it, academically, if they're having trouble with their major, things like that. The point of the varsity program is to build up our players as much as we can, and that's not just within the esports realm. We want to make sure they're the best students they can be as well. So like I said too, a ton of job opportunities and internships, and then we're also going to provide scholarship opportunities as well. So many students that are involved within the varsity program are also going to get scholarships for their time. These students are spending a good chunk of their week practicing their games when they're not in school. So we want to make sure that they're well taken care of while they are doing that, and trying to make sure that they can represent OU as best as they can. And then increased enrollment is a big thing too. Esports is, while it's an exciting kind of concept of an industry that people are really interested in learning about and seeing how they can dive in, it is something that appeals to a lot of students as well. There's a chance that a student you might know just plays games casually. What we found is a lot of students that play games casually, not even into esports, will realize they have a career path there that they didn't have before. So it's a really good way to kind of help students figure out what they want to do in life, whether that's journalism or esports healthcare or broadcasting. Esports is what I would kind of say that starting point and their avenue to figure out what path they want to take. So enrollment's a really big thing with that, because typically if students see an esports program is there, they're going to understand that there's many opportunities for them to figure out. They don't have to know what they're doing right away, because there's so many different opportunities that, is available to them. More than they would have time to even experience, I guess, while they're there. It's just so vast. So do I have another slide here? There we go. So I kind of want to talk about kind of the alumni in our field too. We have output a good amount of really solid professionals within the industry already. So kind of started from the right. Adam Apicella is somebody who's kind of seen as the, what word do I want to describe? Adam is kind of like one of the founders, I guess, for modern esports is the best way I could describe it. So Adam enrolled before the esports program was a thing here. He founded MLG, which is kind of seen as one of the largest esports organizations, the first kind of kick off. And he now runs Esports Engine in Columbus, which is a turnkey solution company that runs large scale esport events for professionals. Matthew Shiflett was the social media coordinator for Boston Uprising and has recently actually just moved to Esports Engine as well, which is very exciting. You have Sydney Malheim, who was a graphic designer for Washington Justice, which is a professional Overwatch team like Boston Uprising, TSM and Evil Geniuses, which are both also very high-level professional esports organizations. And then Chris Puckett, who we're also very proud of. Chris Puckett is seen as one of the best broadcasters within the esports space. So, if you ask any esports player to name a famous esports caster, I would say like 8 out of 10 times they're going to name Chris Puckett. I cannot undervalue how important he is to the esports industry. So that's just kind of a little taste of the program, the alumni that have come out from us so far. If you would kind of imagine how many great individuals have come out of our program right now and how many more we're going to create once we have this off the ground, it's exciting and overwhelming to think about. So that is the end of mine. So I think we have time for questions now. Where can you purchase an esports jersey? I will link that for you right now. And then while I'm doing that, we can see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, the esports jersey question is a great one. I kind of wanted to know that as well. So yeah, definitely drop that link in the chat. Those are neat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted to give folks a few moments. Maybe if you have questions, put it in the chat in the Q&A. I have a few questions that I just wanted to ask you that might be a jumping off point, some things I was interested in. You were talking about enrollment numbers potentially like at a university, and it got me thinking about how, with some of these other physical sports we think about, there's regulations on the number of scholarships for these sports. I forget what they are exactly, if it's like 80 in football, 12 in basketball, or 15 or whatever it is. But theoretically, if you kept adding these sports, as long as there's a varsity team for it, you could continue to increase the number of scholarships. So like could Ohio University field 2 Rocket League teams and almost double their varsity scholarships? And so I guess I'm thinking, is there any cap on scholarships, or could it just keep growing?
I think, and Ivy can comment, I'm sure, as well, but right now, esports is many of the esports leagues and college universities have made the conscious choice of trying not to sort of follow the road of the NCAA and with lots of regulations and lots of rules. And so I think right now, unless you know of some other reason, right now I don't think there are any limitations on the organizational support. In fact, the esports. Students that are participating in professional esports are actually allowed to participate in professional leagues while they're playing varsity. So there's a lot of the NCAA restrictions that we might be used to with football or basketball right now, at least, do not apply to esports as far as I know.
Mm-hmm. No, that's completely correct. The only restriction that there really is that students must put priority over the MAC league that they're playing in versus others. But other than that, they do have free reign to play in any of the leagues they want. How many teams per game that schools have is really dependent on resources. Like I believe Akron has 2 Rocket League teams right now. For other games like Rocket League, or not for Rocket League, for CSGO, Overwatch, Valorant, you'll often see 1 team for those, just because those are 5 to 6 person teams, which is already a lot of people. So if you can imagine 2 teams of 5, that takes up a lot of resources.
Yeah, thanks for answering that. I was also curious. I just had another question as well. And again, if you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat or Q&A. I was curious if you all had a perspective. I don't know if my phone was listening to me as I was preparing for this and talking about esports or what I was looking up, but it did talk about kind of this connection between a lot of esports games and events and violence in society. Do you see a negative perception there, or could that stunt the growth of this industry, given that a lot of the games have a focus on fighting and things like that? Or do you kind of see that as there being not being a barrier, given that it's a virtual world and things like that?
So that's a pretty common misconception, and that's totally valid too. Back in the, I'd say like mid 2000s, that was kind of a large concerns. But there's been numerous scientific studies nowadays that have shown there is no correlation between gun violence and games. Um, the connection just simply isn't there. Most players who are really invested in esports are typically more invested in honing in their skill set and the competitive aspect of things, more so than the imagery that is involved within the game. So I wouldn't say it's really so much of a big issue now. We still see those concerns from parents nowadays, but it's pretty easy to send them, a variety of scientific studies that can kind of debunk that.
Yeah, and I would add there are I think the violence issue, I think, is as I said, has pretty much been set aside. What we are very mindful of at OU is that as with some technical aspects and with gaming in general, the sort of the making sure that there's full equity and gender equitable access on a gender basis, for example, is something that we are very proactive on, just as we are with any of our technical academic disciplines that tend to be male focused. I mean, gaming is male focused, and it's something that we have to be very deliberate about. And so if I had a concern as a parent, it would be more like, how supportive, for example, is a program of female gamers, which can be an issue, but it's something that we are very much aware of and are very deliberate about.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for answering those questions, and thanks Julio, Ivy, Hans, for joining us today on Empower Hour. I loved it. That was awesome. I really enjoyed learning more about that. I think this video is going to be great for a lot of our alumni to see, even after today. I enjoyed that so much, and I think it's awesome to see Ohio University kind of at the forefront with a lot of this and leading the way and creating opportunities for our students. And we know that you all play a major role in that. And so thank you for doing that and helping our students and helping Bobcats. Again, I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. Today is Giving Day, and so don't forget about that. Make sure you go check out the Giving website. I just wanted to again mention the specific kind of funds that we are targeting here with this event. And so we've got the Thomas Lonsberry Memorial Scholarship. And so this is a scholarship that supports students and provides opportunities to those in the McClure ITS program. That's specifically what it focuses on. I'll put the link in the chat. You can click on that to learn more about that. We already had someone in the chat mention how great they thought that was. They were going to support that. And then we also wanted to point out the Esports Support Fund. And so it supports student workers specifically to help move the esports program forward. And a gift today can provide life-changing opportunities for students passionate about this exciting and growing industry. And as you can hear, there's a lot of opportunities that are coming so quickly. It's just now happening, and these programs are just being put in place by Ohio because we're seeing the opportunity to provide for students with this industry. And so thank you all again for joining us today. Be sure to go check out that information, give.ohio.edu. Thanks again. Hope you can join us for another event soon. Thanks again, Julio, Ivy, and Hans. I look forward to talking with you all again soon.
Thank you, Caleb. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you, guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.